slamkryparen. Skona mig från hyckleri och tomma masker. Låt mig slippa mera artificialitet, fjäsk och later. Dra åt helvete med all bedrövlig tillgjordhet och fåfänga. Jag vägrar vara en som gör sig till och passar in i ett system. Jag kan ej ändra mina egna färger eller acceptera lögner. Nej, jag är allergisk mot all förljugenhet som tillhör allting etablerat och vill ej ha någon del i falskhetens kulisser som blott förvrider sanningen och vill manipulera bort allt vett. Jag vägrar hålla tyst med min kritik mot allt och kan ej acceptera något som jag upplever som fåfängt och förgängligt. Jag är trött på all småaktighet, på allt pedantiskt nonsens och på nogräknade petitesser. Låt mig vara skild från er i fred och slippa flyta med i strömmen som en annan kall död fisk med endast livlöshet att komma med och få ha mina ideal av otidsenlighet och inopportunism i fred. Det låsta samhället. Du är aldrig hemma när jag söker dig. Jag är så trött på att behöva klättra över stängsel. Alla dessa låsta dörrar håller fel folk borta. Hur kan någon idka vänskap, umgänge och kärlek eller ens ha ett humant fungerande samhälle om man måste kunna koder till vartenda hus man går till? Måste kärleken då sättas bakom stängsel och med våld och tvångsåtgärder utestängas från vartenda hem? Skall då privatliv göras synonymt med isolering? I Orwells sköna nya värld är kärleken en farlig sjukdom som med alla medel måste motstås och bekämpas och elimineras genom mediciner såsom pesticider och droger som motverkar människans förmåga till att tänka klart, och mänskliga kontakter är ett hot mot samhällsordningen. Den enda tillåtna kulturen är det allmänna tillrättalagda hjärntvättsflödet som nödvändigt är obligatoriskt för varenda en, och den som motstår överhetens påbjudna indoktrinering är asocial och potentiell som samhällsfarligt element och att betrakta som en subversiv och kriminell säkerhetsrisk som noga måste kontrolleras och bevakas genom helst ett utarbetat övervakningssystem av helst kameror på varje gata, så att varje drag av honom kan analyseras och tas upp i hans behandling. Denna dehumanisering och denaturalisering av vår mänsklighet för ordningens och säkerhetens skull, för att politiker ska få det lättare att sköta manipulationen, för etablissemangets lögner, hyckleri och cyniska omänsklighet är jag så gränslöst trött på, och jag vill ej längre hålla på med att bestiga höga stängsel och forcera taggtrådshinder, bryta mig in genom låsta dörrar, spärrade med ständigt nya koder, bara för att träffa och få se min vän som lider av sin ensamhet som alla andra. Torra gubbar. Fabel, fritt efter Ferlin. När skönheten kom till byn rynkade gubbarna sina pannor och sade: vi bad henne aldrig komma. Och det gav henne sparken och körde ut henne, för de visste att de klarade sig bättre utan skönhet och besvär med sina frustna hjärtan av sten. Och så levde de vidare utan dans eller sång och utan något som kunde störa deras sinnesfrid, till de föredrog att leva utan skönhet hellre än att riskera att bli upprörda eller alls ha några känslor. Ty den etablerade klokheten är så avancerad i sin framsynthet att rara blomster som orkidéer måste förfrysa och torka ut i dess kalla närhet, och folk blir uttorkade av dess torra volymer, av pedantiska instruktioner om anvisningar och föreskrifter till förstening genom en så omfattande och pedagogisk hjärntvätt så att deras ögon aldrig mer skall kunna stråla av vakenhet eller deras intellekt aldrig mer skall kunna ifrågasätta något. Istället tvingas det till hårt fysiskt arbete genom allmän nyttan i att lägga sten på börda till förmån för arbetsgivarna och de andra, det som så idogt lärt dem att bara sköta sina egna affärer och mest bara räkna sina pengar, eftersom det alltid var så få, och att avsky och förakta skratt och njutningar, som till exempel av vackra orkidéer i en trädgård. Men sångerna skall aldrig upphöra med att sjunga om sommaren som alltid återkommer med nytt solsken. Mycket kommer att gå över som aldrig var till någon glädje, och våra hjärtan kommer än en gång att lyftas upp. Ty skönheten varken kommer eller går utom för att komma igen. Det kommer sångerna aldrig att upphöra att sjunga om, fastän de torra gubbarna aldrig kommer att lyssna till dem, då de vet att deras inkrökthet ej är någonting att sjunga om. Acceptance. What shall we do with our love? Is it compatible? Can it be brought to fruition? Is it at all possible for this idealism to be brought down to normality on this base earth of mortality, and without being debased? Can our lives be combined, or must we be like aliens to both the world and each other, because of the purity, quality, and perfect beauty of this our magnificent heavenly love? The questions are answers enough to themselves. Our love has been brought to existence and can never more be denied it. It is, and it lives by itself, and must simply be recognized, tolerated, humbly sustained and supported, and not without caution, mind you, but without reservations enjoyed and adored and consistently glorified. Unsilenceable. We are one soul together, you and I, but that I have already told you. How then shall I vary this tremendous truism, this self-evident manifestation fact of love, this inexhaustible resource and treasure of the most infinite energy and power, this fantastic marvel of two souls becoming one? My love is inexpressible because it is too true to stand a definition and can therefore never be pinned down, like all true love that is too vulnerable in its delicacy to be comprehensible to anyone except its two exclusive sharers. So shall I keep silent then about it? That is thoroughly impossible because, as Jesus said himself, if human calls are silenced, then the rocks will cry instead, and in our case, even mountains, continents, the sea, the sun and moon, and all the planets of the universe. Whispering. My love, what right have I to call you so? We must be cautious not to risk disturbance of our budding plant, the precious future of a delicate and brittle tenderness to constitute a sensitive relationship of some uniqueness in its frail vulnerability. So let me whisper only and in darkness secret messages of love, the honesty of which be proved by its consistent silence, that in time may speak more loudly and more clearly than the finest music ever played on earth, to shame all noise and falseness, rudeness and disharmony, since we, in disciplining carefully our love, will be responsible for the most absolute and true and beautiful and purest music ever played on earth. Blind love. Poetry is not enough to express the ways of love, how it lures us to obey, blindly the atrocious way in which we simply are deceived beyond our senses, far astray, into the wilderness of childish play. I can't object, I'm all for it. Lead me on, you are my guide, blind goddess, since you are the only one to know the better proper way of how to make the show go on, forever without any stage to play it on, and without any stuff to build it on. Longing. My longing overtakes me every moment when my thoughts engulf me like a whirlstorm of nostalgia, concentrating on but one thing in the world, which is, of course, yourself. If all this monstrous pain and languishment of longing is not love in honesty and utter purified sincerity, whoever possibly could think so is not human or is ignorant beyond repair, because no one knew what love was who could not see and recognize its suffering. All love is high-strung, self-inflicted torture of the most enjoyable and sympathetic kind, since it is only true and self-denying generosity. Insufficiency. How many poems must be written in order for my love to be expressed? I am afraid my powers will not be sufficient to fill up those volumes of infinity. Or shall I say that not the finest poem in existence will do justice to my love, since she is far more perfect than what any art can be? Or being human, she transcends all art, since beauty is a matter of spirituality, which therefore matter cannot form. So let's abide by that, and with respect resign from further effort to expose our love and its true nature, since it is too intimate to ever be unveiled to uninitiated eyes. In sanctuary, let our love be secret, so that it be kept from insight, from improper alien eyes that would not understand its wonder, this fantastic marvel of agreement and this harmony of unison and mutual understanding, so that our wee newborn babe, so vulnerable in her freshness, may stay uncontaminated by the envious minds of smaller fry, who would not understand how much we love each other, although we do never meet. So shall they never harm you, since they can't identify you. Thus our love will be safeguarded for its growth and sacredness, in limitless perpetualness and blessedness for all those happy few that happen to be touched by our love. Discretion. The language of disguise and dreams, in delicacy and in understatement, is the web of poetry, in which each poet is forever lost, since he has too much to express and finds that cloven tongue of ambiguity far too applicable to ever be abandoned. Add to this a knowledge of a higher language still, in which the inexpressible find touch and tune of higher than a mortal note, and we can break all records of discretion. Sensitivity. I don't think we can hurt each other. That is my constant premonition, which I think and hope is true, because the last thing that I ever wanted was to hurt a lady, or for any matter, any person. So I rather kept apart, surrounding me in music, to keep out the rotten influences of the world. It's like a smoke screen, but efficient, for the spirit which needs most protection, and the more the higher your spirituality aspires, since all feelings true pertain entirely and solely to the soul, which is the only lasting essence of your life, which you were given by eternity, to guard it well and use it well for infinite construction. In despair, you have left me alone with my ghosts, and I suffer outrageously, being alone in this dark hell of nothing, with only intolerable abstinence to make me cry, out for mercy in ravaging agony, since I thought you were my friend. No love has bereft me of thee, and no love can now ever restore thee. No love is the sinner and criminal in this outrageous iniquity. No love at all was there ever that joined us, but only illusions, pretensions, and false golden dreams of a love that was stillborn and fraudulent, hopeless and vain from the very beginning. I lived in a dream I imagined of light and of truth, and find me awakened in abysmal darkness, like lost and thrown out in the emptiness of outer space. And my love, she is lost, since she found all her freedom, which bound me in chains of her loss in a night without end. May she do what she can with her freedom. My life's only comfort is that I was sacrificed for it. Resounding discretion. My love is health and bliss and happiness, but without her I am a forlorn child, in agony and darkness of a total hell, of suffering and pain and hopelessness, since I feel abandoned and betrayed, although I know not how I am deceived, a blind man robbed of cane and dog, and left without a human voice to hear in all eternity. And where are you in this abysmal darkness? Surely you must be somewhere, or may be lost like me, wherefore I feel your loss like if it was my own. My love, you are inside me still, and I have not deserted you, continuing our secret conversations constantly, in soul and spirit ever stirring, in the faintest whispering of constant love, which though remains the only sound that matters, dominating and resounding through the universe in perfect harmony and silence of discretion. The great deception. We hide ourselves in art to mask our naked souls that stand not getting hurt by human common baseness, so predominant among the multitude, from which we separate in horror to protect the frail vulnerability of our ideals that all too easily gets sullied and pulled down in dirt by envy and the ignorance and shortcomings of lack of understanding that so dominates the world, society and humankind in constant and atrocious tragedy. So we protect ourselves in masks and hide ourselves in art, to do our best to make a good performance, just to spite vulgarity and commonness, and thus make show and play, to hide reality from view, and make believe there is a better world, if nowhere else, at least inside ourselves, if only we could be convincing in the art of this deception, which is all the world's constructiveness. Nostalgic trip. Take me back to Hippieland, the promised land of happiness and joy, where all were rebels and authority was dead, with beauty reigning sunnily alone with flying colours, spreading colourfulness everywhere, tainting all humanity in psychedelic splendour, drowning noise and ugliness in music and of fantasy, encouraged by intriguing spices like of drugs, which only was a brilliant explosion of creativeness and of imagination, promising a better world for everyone, for all the future and for all humanity, with shining innovative dresses and adornments, jewelry galore, with earrings and the longest hair in history, and no limitation to expansion. So let me dwell there in the land of nowhere, everywhere in every age, where beauty is the queen, and fantasy is law, and pure creativeness is all religion, with no end to tolerance and universal love. Soaring. Yet another poem, out of love and from my heart, to you, my love, in spite of all, the inexpressibility of our predicament, that we fly high above the stars and can't return to earth, maybe forever, maybe since of ages past, as if we always had each other, or at least knew well each other deeper than the depths of any faithful heart, since hereby our souls are proved in constancy, more permanent in faith than any life. So let us just continue soaring high above the stars and be content to never more return to mortal triviality. Apology. What am I to ever think that you could love me? This old fogey past his prime is nothing but a wretched wreck, an invalid who never lived, a sorry and pathetic caricature of a fool who always and persistently deceived himself and lost himself to vanities of ephemeral dreams, temptations without end and without sustenance, that filled my life with nothing except losses. How could I expect then that anyone could love me? How could anyone be asked to love a dream? You do not love it, you just dream it, and when the dream is over, you forget it. Some say you should fall in love as many times as possible, have love affairs and even some engagements sometimes, but be married just for once or never, or at least as rarely as possible. But I was married from the start to the idealism of beauty and of art, and ended up this parody like some odd fart. So just forget me, I was born a hopeless case, unqualified for love and life, a dreamer and no more himself than just a dream, for others no more than perhaps an alien, to condescendingly at most think kindly of at times. The difficult mission. Our difficult mission is patience with coarseness and rudeness, with ignorance, negligence, and lack of feelings, for naturalness, for the obvious, and for religion. Our problem is that we are wise, which is a most unbearable responsibility, since that obliges us to teach humanity by our examples to grow and improve as spiritual beings into something better. Just to be and to work is our mission, but just as long we just keep at it, maintaining appearances and a high standard of love, the good news is, in the long run, that we cannot fail. Niagara. Whenever something happens that enhances and speeds up your love, just throw yourself right into it, abandon life and soul and everything, and let yourself be swept along the current, even if it carries down the Niagara. For what higher meaning can you find in life than just for once allow yourself the privilege and joy of falling down the ultimate extinction of yourself in a cascade of splendor, in abysmal adequate abandonment of enthusiastic life and love, in the exhilaration of consummate beauty? Let yourself be brought to heaven just by falling down as long as possible the whole path of the Milky Way, to end up in another way triumphantly with all eternity. How could I else then love you? How could I else then love you when you are like my own other self, but many years more young and beautiful? How could I else but love you when the whole world goes against us, separating us by continents and seas, and keeping us by force away from love and pleasure by the brutal means of labour and economy? How could I anything but love you when we are the same and have the same ideals, when we share both the same conception of true beauty, honesty and sensitivity? How could I resist loving you when I am man and you are woman? It is all too obvious we need each other, The only problem is that we can't have each other yet. One love poem too much. Can there be one love poem too much? Of course not, never. That's precisely the problem, that love can never be enough. That's why you ladies never can be satisfied, since you are only made for love, and love can never be enough. That's why we men can never quite exhaust ourselves, since we can never give enough of our love. The more we give, the more there is for us to give. And thus the burden grows of what we have to give. The more we give it, and we have no choice. We have to constantly keep at it, overstressed and overloaded, since that is the rule of love that keeps us all alive. The only possible escape is now and then to go away. We have to keep on loving till we die, and that is just a temporary and ephemeral relief, since all that love consists of is eternal continuity. Even though I leave you far behind me, even though I leave you far behind me and my life with you is lost, I can't get rid of you within my heart, nor am I willing to. Remain, my love, although just as a relic, like the memory of some capricious glimpse of what perhaps could have been possible, and such a faint momentum of a passing dream will in its revelation all the same remain a firmer base than any solidness of the prevailing lasting permanence of our love, which in its very fainting flickering flame will loom much hotter and more fierce than any fire, just because it's all about sincerity and love. As if the impossibility was needed to make it possible. What am I to be a lover and a rogue at that in exile? Who am I to make pretensions on any lady's love much more beautiful than me? Who am I to nourish wishful thoughts when it is certain that they can't be realized beyond a reasonable doubt? My love is totally impossible, but the more it keeps on burning, inflaming and consuming all my life, in a wreck of worry, chaos and pathetic tenderness, as if impossibility was all it needed to transcend mortality. Without or with no mortal ties. The more I am alone, the less I am alone, because there's always you, like someone to watch over me in darkness, like someone's company that never fails, like some continuous dream in permanence that constantly remains a witchcraft as protecting talisman and guardian angel. Let me be your guardian angel from some distance, like you are to me, so that our permanence remain constructive like a marriage, but without or with no mortal ties. Thus have I expressed our strange agreement, beyond words, without control and out of order, so that nothing in the world can keep us down to earth. Love call, evoking thee, my love, is to cry out like from the end of darkness on the farthest side of the universe. But since my cry is pure and honest as a love call, it will sound throughout the universe and reach thy soul by means of silence, since it merely consists of honesty. Is our love a problem? Only if we try to realize it by combining practically our lives, which although match each other, since we both so often are away. But this our silent love call will reduce all distances and make us one in the dimension of those golden dreams in which the souls of beauty are at home forever. Outsiders. We are the happy few, the fortunate outsiders, the most privileged among the privileged, since we stand outside the vulgarity of mankind and are happily excluded from all commonness, the common lack of wisdom, knowledge, and spiritual insight that most vital know-how of discernment, judgment, and clairvoyance, observation of the soul behind it all, its movements of all-powerfulness that is life itself and its main secret. So are we not outsiders but insiders, initiated in the mechanisms of spirituality, while the real outsiders are all the others, those who follow thoughtlessly the madding crowd to death and without even having seen the truth of life. The poor gift of freedom. Let me give you all my freedom, the freedom of my heart, the freedom of my love, the freedom of life itself, although that is all that I can give you. But nothing is more precious, for love and its continuity. There is nothing more valuable, since there is no love without freedom. So let us meet in this most senseless freedom and join hands in love therein forever, since there's actually nothing more to it than just outrageous freedom without any possible limitations. I can only think of you as my beloved. I can only think of you as my beloved. Love is all there is between us. Nothing else is needed or of any matter, since love covers all that is of any good. No words are needed to express it. No presence is of any urgency, since we so clearly love each other through all dimensions and throughout eternity. So why at all express it then? Because it is so real and therefore needs documentation, as some kind of evidence against base incredulity and against that time of superficial momentariness which claims all things must end, and even immortality. Passion without end, where wilt thou lead me? Passion without end, where wilt thou lead me? Anywhere or nowhere, but to somewhere without end. Just lead me on, and I will follow, faithfully, obediently, to anywhere, as long as your constructiveness keeps shining, like a lone star in the darkest night, and like a lighthouse in the hardest storm. And I will sail in safety through the blackest rocks, in pure obedience following your call, naively and uncritically, like a sheep of purest faith and a good heart, the shepherd of my faith and love who cannot fail me, since I know full well that love will never fail as long as you stay faithful to your love. In waiting, I can't believe that it is real, that you are coming home to me, but for how long this time? What limitation do you grant me for thy keeping? Will you escape again out of my hands for new adventures with your friends, for me just foreigners and strangers? I am bound to you in love and at your mercy. You will lead our dance, and I will just join in, obey thy lead, adapt myself and sing thy tune as an accompanist to your impeccability, and listen carefully to every hint you make, so that I never may step on your toe in the delicacy of a pas de deux of love. Expectancy. No one knows that I love you, and perhaps not even you. Or do you feel my trembling tenderness, vibrating clandestinely in the air? I try to capture yours, but I am captive in my own and cannot separate them from reality, while yours are based on tender memories of facts of words that you have spoken and that never can be taken back. For words of love are valid for eternity, since they, because of love, are truth itself, and the truest possible of truths forever. There we are, exposed and outcast to our love, which we as artists are to form into some kind of lasting continuity, creativeness, and beauty. Fair exchange. Your tears convinces me of your sincerity, for tears are evidence of pure humanity. Tears cannot lie, nor grief, nor pain, nor suffering, but is the bareness of the soul in helpless nakedness, which must be taken care of, comforted, and loved if for nothing else than just for being there, a living soul of bleeding openness and vulnerable to exposure. Take my own soul in return for keeping and safeguarding in your heart like I keep thine, and let us thus exchange our lives instead of rings, and keep them safely locked up in each other, like a secret close to human ignorance and baseness, but forever free to anyone that cares for universal and eternal good investigation. Measured immeasurability. How much do I love you? The amount thereof cannot be specified, since that indefinite infinity is not to be defined by any mathematical and scientific definition, since, as we are well aware, that love is relative, immeasurable, undefinable, and even quite untouchable, since there is nothing more supreme and sacred than our human feelings, which are sovereign to life and paramount in all existence, guiding human life, embracing all, and breathing and bestowing life on all things human, gracing and endowing it with beauty. That is my confession of my love, which concentrates on you, my lovely woman, putting you in center of it all. Careful prospects. My love, is it weakness or is it strength? This magic that obliges me to love you senselessly and mercilessly, ruthlessly against myself and you, which is why I have to do it with restraint and not let any feeling show to you or anyone, in order just to keep it safe from harm, intrusion and exposure to unqualified, unwanted and debasing eyes. So am I forced to love you clandestinely. For how long, and to what unendurable direction? No one knows, so let's just keep it on, endure its heat with patience and discretion, and face the possibility of never seeing any end to it. There is no importuning in true love. There is no importuning in true love. All doors are open, there is nothing to break down. True love can never be enforced, since its existence makes all force unnecessary. Thus is even sexuality made superfluous, when love exists as all that matters. Only one thing you must never do in love: desert your heart and your beloved. If she has gained access to your heart, you must not ever lock her out from there, since spiritual divorce is an impossibility and worse than suicide and murder, since it is the soul that is involved and matters. When your soul is the performer of your art of love, and your soul has been taken in possession by another, there is no way out in all eternity from that engagement. You were married long before you even met. Constructive criticism. Is music our self-deception, the seducer of our lives, that lead us wrong into the blind alley of self-love, as addicted slaves in selfless and blind service to the cruel, insensitive divinity of beauty? Doubt is necessary for our love. There is no right way unless it is doubted, re-evaluated, criticized and tried again for life, in constant re-examination and exacting scrutiny, so that our love can overcome all obstacles and indefatigably purified proceed and grow, and spite all human baseness and vulgarity, to triumph constantly, forever, like a phoenix, leaving everything behind that was not beautiful enough. Our hope. My doubts are not about your character, but about our possibilities. How can love exist and thrive in a world denaturalized and dehumanized, where ugliness replaces beauty more and more, and music is replaced and drowned by magnified noise? Our love, then, is a parenthesis, an exception from this world of baseness an ideal that is not seen as real and cannot economically be accounted for, since money in this selfish world is all. So how can our love survive, an alien thing in this to love so alien world? Our hope is universal love, which always saves us all. Total love. My love of you is total. There is nothing more to add. I want to share with you my all, my soul and body, mind and universe, and feel your soul inside my own in a mutual coitus more advanced, with no harm done to anyone, no humiliation and no hurting, being both completely at a level in a brilliant consummation of the purest, highest beauty, reaching higher levels than can be imagined, fulfilling the marvel peak of life called love. The Clown's Testament. Do not laugh at me, because I am not funny, just a grumpy fool on his way down, my greasy mask decaying, mingled with the putrid mucus of my running nose, congested into some kind of sour goo, just like my failure of a life, supposed to be a pleasantness to others, but which turned to only grief and tears for this interminably laughing caricature of a clown who probably quite soon will only have his last smile left, the final scolding death skull grim. Turning a leaf. How can we stand this world of cruelty, where humans naught but run each other over, caring nothing, going blindly on as parasites, with self-love as their only guide, the greatest ignorance of all and the only sure way to perdition? Shall we stand by and just look on this folly, doing nothing to direct them to salvation? Yes, my dear, I am afraid that that is all that we can do. If they can't help themselves, then even less can we. All we can do is faithfully to pursue our pious diligence and efforts to constructiveness, and work in peace as hermits if we must, and maybe one day they will see the better world we built for them. The eternal conflict. The constant conflict between reality and ideals, the eternal opponents that never can make peace, the dreamed of and the wished for, is constantly transformed to just the brutal unwished for and self-deceits. Beauty never can accept debasing ugliness, which always try to drag down beauty to its baseness. The soul can never become body, since the body's course tends to corrupt the soul. This war we just have to accept as an eternal and interminable, unendurable predicament, and fight it out intrepidly until we die, with this sole comfort, that the essence of all beauty and our soul, in contrary to all the rest, can never die. Downfall and survival. My love, how can I reach you? You were here expected long ago, and suddenly then your arrival was announced, and I was all on edge like some newborn and trembling deer, and what an orgy of tremendous feelings and of love. And then you didn't come. Exactly everything was perfect. There was nothing missing in our happiness, except that you did not appear. And now, what other end to this most awkward business? Failure, capital defeat, a lost quest to give up, just another total fiasco. No, our friendship conquers all and everything. In friendship nothing ever can be missing. It is solid and more pure and valuable than gold, and this, of course, we can continue building on, whatever happens, and forever. Rape, pour comfort to a bleeding friend. Don't ask me how it feels. You do not feel it any more when it is over, but you bleed forever. And the only way to get away from how it hurts is to repress it and to stifle it with stoicism. That will not stop the wound from bleeding, but it is the only way to maintain your survival, to walk through life on razor's edges and pretend it doesn't hurt. There is no medicine. You cannot drink that pain away. No drugs will help, and there is no escape. All efforts to anesthetize the pain will be but vanity and self-deceit. Just bear it out and keep the anguish buried, although the spear will pierce your heart in constant pain of this infected wound that will not heal but was inflicted once to only be renewed forever and a day, like some life sentence for the innocent. Confessional. My love, you make me desperate by keeping out of touch, by missing our appointments, and by seeing that ex-lover of your past, a periodic drunkard who has lost his touch, whom I don't know if he still has some claim on you, while I for certain know how you love him. An awkward situation? Not at all. Just so typically feminine, so desperately out of order, so outrageously chaotic. But this abysmal and dwindling darkness adds but fuel to my fire's light and makes me love you even more, and naturally with even greater desperation. Rain. A melancholic drizzle fills our hearts with dampness after wholesome shower outbreaks, like your cloudburst of despair the other day which rent my heart in twain. I will not ever hurt you, only soothe you, comfort you and love you, wallowing in the magnificence and generosity of your dynamic heart and soul, the richness of which speaks out clearly in the lovely abundance of your hair. Let me with my decrepit life hide out and drown in that diluvian, glorifying in your beauty's cornucopia, worshipping and senselessly extolling in the jubilant unification of our souls, in boundless and ecstatic love that spites the oceans in its overflow. In the praise of folly. Am I mad to be in love with you? Of course, but nothing is more important than to be in love. There is no other wisdom than the folly of love, and the madder you are as a lover, the saner your mind, the higher your wisdom, no matter whom you are in love with. Because loving for the sake of loving another is all that counts, and it can never be too much or even enough. Your love. Everybody loves you, but who loves you the most? The fervent admirer who has had any amount of wives, or the fallen lover who desperately tries to forget you? The old man who pathetically keeps his love a secret, since he knows he never can have you, or myself, who never loved until now? You were only made for love, but for a higher kind of love than what any woman can be loved by mortally, since your essence is more than that. Your soul lying bare like your music, like the divinity of beauty, that only can be loved by adoration at a distance to make it safe from ever running the risk of getting defiled. The triumph of love. Is exhibitionism of love a folly, vanity, or just stupidity? The problem is it can't be kept under a bushel. Love is only true when it cries out resoundingly to make the world reverberate and tremble at the genuineness of higher feelings that in power easily transcend all worldly powers. Love is more than just an earthquake, more than just exploding supernovas, more than just the alteration of world history. Since it is so more subtle in its clandestine vibrations that can only be observed and felt and recognized by lovers who are sure of what they feel, who therefore can control this most tremendous force of nature, and who therefore know that nothing can be greater than the fundamental heart of life, which is the urge to just go on, expand, and gloriously continue with your love forever. Comfort. Let me share your tears and shed them with my own, and thus cry out with all the misery of all humanity to purge the world in oceans of compassion. Let me mix my grief with thine, and thus in some way maybe neutralize it, to provide a better platform for the future, not for us alone, but for all life. No tears are ever shed in vain. They are the true manifestation of compassion, and there is no compassion without love. Let us not ever set a limit to our empathy, but let it flow in tears to overflow all oceans. Let the generosity of our grief not ever cease, but piously provide a fountain for the future and for life. For there is no better life than that which rises from compassion. Joseph K. is the hero of Franz Kafka's novel The Process, where the processes gradually grind him to dust, to finally end by his being taken away, whereafter nothing more is known about the fate of him. Joseph K., after his being taken away. I'm wasted, dead and buried. I'm all used up and spent, kicked down the graveyard into the black hole of oblivion that awaits us all, like some old skeleton without identity, a skull of emptiness and nonsense, worn out, burnt out, sorted out, refused a hearing by all terminals, forgotten formally, buried alive, without a gravestone or a ceremony. For my love is gone, and I am left alone, a vacuum of loneliness, a drifting satellite astray in space, without a purpose, like a lost cause in the universe, doomed miserably just to wander as a zombie or a ghost through darkness, sentenced to existence in a limbo of despair, for there is nothing left for me but to outlive and survive myself. Unspeakability. There is so much more to talk about, there is so much there to say, that words are not enough. They cannot match our feelings. No expression can fulfill our purpose, and the words we say just trifle our intention and bring down the truth to trivialities, and thus are unfair to our love. My heart would ache out torrents of my blood to match what I would like to sacrifice to you, in pious prayers of the noblest wishes, but not even oceans of my blood would be enough, but merely a shadow of what truth would crave from me, to make the need of our communion any justice. A dream of paradise. My love is like a dream of love, but all too true to dream. She dreams of beauty and of love, but is too pure to voice that dream. My love is like a perfect understatement, and without exaggerations, not a word escapes her that lets out the truth about the width of this reality, that is a dream but carefully and gradually come true, like a momentous opening of a theatre curtain that with the greatest care reveals but faintly more and more of an unheard of heaven that excels all paradisic dreams that ever could be dreamed. The advantages of feminism. You were never lovelier than at this present moment, and let it last forever and continue ever to improve. My love, you are the incarnation of what's best with feminism, the charm and wisdom of its motherliness, its grace, ethereal aestheticism and soul, and that for me is the most precious thing that ever came across my troubled path, of what was so far only tragedy and toil. My love, be free of me and of my past, and let us only live that our love may last. More waiting. My love, there is no more demanding, difficult ambition than to strictly keep to doing what is right, especially in normal close relationships. So far we have done well, but it has certainly been difficult indeed. My greatest worry has been, ever since I found myself completely hooked by you or by my fate, the difficulty for us to combine our lives mundanely, practically, and accordingly. Theoretically, there was never any problem. Spiritually, we are perfect and can never be at odds. But how adjust this perfect spiritual consummation, harmony and order, unity and kinship of our souls to any normal and material, practical, convenient life? That is our difficulty and our challenge, and the only means of overcoming it that I can see is patience and continued self-control in simply waiting for our time to come, although that wait is the most difficult of all. Morning prayer. You are my morning prayer, like a symphony of beauty. You are my awakening to a reality more beautiful than any dream. You are like the untouchability of sensitivity that only can be felt and loved but never known. You are my life, without which there is only death. You are my responsibility that I must always strive for and live up to. You are my best friend and my only friend that I am constantly conversing with, and even when you are not there. You are my love, and I must love you. The musician, a victim to her beauty and transcendent talent. Many geniuses of music have been this, not only Mozart, who was only number one. Through initiation in a world of beauty that transcends all others, the musician has a liable propensity to more than others be the victim of a self-deceit. Through his harmonious outlook and capacity to see life through the temperament of music, she unfortunately can more cruelly be deceived, and on a much profounder level, since her bid is more than just her life, but even all her soul. And if then it is being dragged down and deceived, for instance by an opportunist or a life abuser, the catastrophe must be much more severe than if it only was material. Through his poetical and musical temperament, the true musician can but see her fellow beings positively, since her basic attitude is pure idealism, and so idealistic that it must exclude the contrary. Thereby we have cases such as Schubert, Schumann, Hugo Wolf, Tchaikovsky, Mendelssohn, Bellini, crushed by the awakening from their ideal dreams, which but consisted of the highest good, and which could but be awakened by its contrary, by what can only be described as mortal violation. That is the dilemma of musicians. Their ideal cannot be understood by those who do not have it. They see an additional dimension and a life of beauty which is cruelly denied by those who do not grasp it, from ignorance, stupidity, or just indifference, which is the most stupid thing of all. And still, in spite of so many musicians' personal catastrophes, they are so much more fortunate and happier than those poor devils who can never understand what music is.